Hello, MavMind Collective, and welcome to another episode of the HypnoSales Show. Today we're going to be talking about the number one secret to HypnoSales. So this is a particular secret that I have not shared. I don't think I've shared it with anyone, maybe one person. In my whole career. It's something that I've kept very close to my chest, like the cards close to my chest on this, because it's something that's enabled me to be very, very successful in my sales career and any of the customer-facing roles that I've had in my career when I discovered this particular secret. And the secret is something that's very simple, but it's basically a strategy. And it's if you're like me, you've probably had different sales training, maybe multiple sales trainings in your career. And one thing I've noticed, and maybe you've noticed this too, the more sales training you have, the more things you learn, these techniques you learn, you start to figure out certain techniques are kind of the same. Like from sales training to sales training to sales training, they talk about generally the same types of ideas. But every now and then you'll get a secret or a technique or something in one sales training that's pretty powerful. And it's unique. You don't see it in the other trainings. It's only like effective within the context of using everything in that sales training methodology. So when you go through these different sales trainings, you learn these specific, unique types of approaches or techniques that are specific to the sales training. And then if you're like me, you end up in a real life situation, you don't follow one or the other exactly explicitly 100%. You choose and pick the different techniques you want to use for the current situation, the selling situation that you're in. So when you're in that customer-facing situation, whatever technique from whichever sales training that you find the most effective, that's the one you're going to use in that moment. Okay, so in other words, you have all of these different skills and you apply them with wisdom and knowledge in the situation. It's very situational. And I rarely have I ever found, I know myself I don't, but even other salespeople I've worked with, other customer-facing roles that I've worked with and consulted with over the years, nobody uses exclusively all of the techniques from just one sales methodology. They always pick and choose from different ones to suit the situation because, it just ends up being that's the best practice. That's the best practice is to pick the one that fits in that moment. So, with that said, though, when I started approaching this idea of creating the MavMind Method and using HypnoSales as my guidepost, as my methodology, I started to realize that there was one common strategy amongst all sales trainings. There's a common strategy, and it really had something to do, and pretty much everything to do, with how the subconscious works. And then I knew at that point, okay, this is the basis, the strategy I'm going to use in all of my HypnoSales efforts. And it became the main driving secret of the MavMind Method. And it's so I'm revealing it today for the first time. And so the number one secret to HypnoSales success is the strategy known as what I call the sales comfort thermostat. Okay, the sales comfort thermostat. And if you're like me, when you were a kid, you probably had a thermostat in your house that you weren't allowed to touch. At least I wasn't allowed to touch it. My dad always told me, don't touch the thermostat, right? Because he paid the electric bill, he paid the heating bill, the air conditioning bill. So when me or my sister would play with the thermostat because it was too hot, we wanted it cooler, so we'd lower the temperature on the thermostat. Or if it was too cold, we'd raise the temperature. It would always make my dad really angry because he would be like, I'm going to have to pay more, the higher bill now because you're heating up the house and you don't need to heat up the house. Put on a coat is what he would always say. Put on a coat. Don't raise the temperature. Put on a coat. That was how he handled it. But this idea of a thermostat in the house, and not touching it, is a good metaphor that I started adapting and adopting for this particular strategy. And I started to realize that when you're in a sales situation, or any kind of customer-facing situation, pre or post-sales even, it's almost like there's this comfort thermostat, a thermostat that gauges everyone's comfort level in the meeting, and during the process, and during the whole sequence from beginning to end, beginning of engagement of a lead all the way to the point where you're getting a quote. So from lead to quote, every meeting, every engagement, there's this gauging of level of comfort. And I started to realize that there's this thermostat, metaphorically in my mind, there's this thermostat that's governing our comfort. And in every interaction with prospects and clients and customers, I'd always imagine that the thermostat is there, and then I kind of figured out these rules that goes with this strategy. The first one is there's only one thermostat. There's only one comfort thermostat. Either you can raise the temperature, or you can lower the temperature of comfort. You can raise the comfort level or lower the comfort level. Now, the second rule is that everyone's idea of comfort is different. So just like similar to everyone in my household when I was growing up, everyone's idea of being too hot or too cold was relative to them, what their body temperature was like, and what they considered comfort and what they considered discomfort. Right? So what I think is too hot might be perfect for you, and what you think is too cold might be perfect for me. Okay? So you have to understand that's another rule that goes with this comfort. My idea of comfort and my prospects or my customers' idea of comfort may be different, and I have to be aware of that with regards to the thermostat. And then one of us can control the thermostat at any point in time. We can adjust it. I can allow the customer to raise the temperature, lower the temperature of comfort, and make me more uncomfortable or make themselves more comfortable by moving the thermostat higher or lower. Or I can choose to negotiate with them and say, I want to adjust the temperature of the comfort level, and I want to put it like somewhere in the middle where I'm comfortable and you're comfortable too. Okay, so it's fair. Or I might decide to go ahead and let them lower the temperature if they're more comfortable with it colder, and I'll just learn to put on a coat when I come to that meeting, metaphorically, okay? So is this making sense? I hope this is making sense. The idea of there's a thermostat that governs our comfort. I can choose to address it how I want, or I can choose to adjust it, or I can let them adjust it, but I just have to be aware that it's there. And the reason why I chose comfort as the main driver is because subconsciously, all of us are subconsciously trying to find a way to stay comfortable. We're trying to be as comfortable as we can. That's the job of the subconscious, is to make sure we're in a position of comfort. And anytime it senses, subconsciously we sense that we're not comfortable, it triggers the fight, flight, or freeze modes, which I talk about the F words of the subconscious, right? Fight, flight, or freeze. Those are things that are triggered off in the subconscious whenever we're not comfortable and we're not safe and we're not sure. It automatically gets triggered. I don't want that to happen. So typically I'm going to adjust the comfort thermostat higher or low to help my customers and my prospects feel comfortable, even if I'm not as comfortable. Or I'll negotiate with them and say, hey, I'm going to move this up and down until I find the perfect balance between what you consider comfortable and what I consider comfortable. And that's basically like negotiation. I'm negotiating. So what I'm really saying, and if you think about it, is even though at the end, once you get that quote from a customer or prospect, you're negotiating for the price typically in the terms at that point of their buying your product or service. But the moment you get a lead and you're moving towards that issuing of a quote and giving them a quote, the lead to quote process, you also need to be aware that there's a negotiation going on throughout that whole process as well. You're negotiating with your prospect or customer for the comfort for both of you and them and you. Both of you need to be comfortable, or you can choose to be uncomfortable, or you can even choose to make the prospect uncomfortable and raise the temperature on them if you want. And then once they're uncomfortable, then negotiate to bring it back down. You can use that as well. So that's the idea. That's the secret strategy to HypnoSales, is understanding that comfort kind of pretty much governs every interaction you have. And either you're comfortable or you're not comfortable. And as long as you're aware of that, you can always decide which technique you want to use for that particular moment to bring the temperature up or bring it down, to control the thermostat. That's what I use to govern what I use, which technique I use, how I approach the customer at that particular stage, when I go to the next steps, how we approach the next steps, while I'm moving from lead all the way to quote. Once I get it to quote and I know they're going to buy, they've made the decision, then it becomes normal negotiation for price and terms at that point, and we close the opportunity. But leading up to that quote, it's always about negotiating comfort level and making sure that both of us are aware of where our comfort levels are, and we make it very known. And it doesn't really even matter what techniques you use, as long as it's that the end result is that everyone is comfortable evenly, fairly. Or if you decide to not be comfortable, then at least you know you're wearing a coat to that cold interaction, that you're allowing the customer to change it to cold, okay? Or you're deciding to raise the temperature to make your customer prospect a slightly uncomfortable, to where then they request for you to bring it back down, and then you can negotiate with why, help me understand why I should bring this down, because I'm comfortable with it high. I'm comfortable with it kind of hot in here because I don't feel like it's hot. Oh, I'm sorry, my bad. Let me bring it back down. And then it causes this natural negotiation for everyone's comfort the whole time. And then you always know what to do in all those situations. So that's the number one secret that I've used, in the metaphor that I use in every interaction I have. And I know this was helpful for you. I know that you found this valuable, and you're going to think about your interactions from now on. You're going to think about it in a much different way, and you're always going to imagine or visualize this sales comfort thermostat in every interaction, and where is it, and who's controlling it, and where do you need to set it next. Thank you for watching. I know you find value in these videos now, didn't you? And if you, like me, are in a customer-facing role, I'm wondering if you want to watch another video now designed to help you get better at what you do every day. Or not. You don't have to watch another video if you don't want to.